2016 was a tumultuous year for the world and a very busy year for MFA staff. The previous global consensus on the benefits of free trade, on economic integration, is broken. And unfortunately, political discourse in many countries, unlike in this House, political discourse in many countries has become increasingly nationalistic, anti-incumbent, and even sometimes xenophobic. The threat from terrorism, radicalism, extremism has increased, and new media has also amplified this threat far and wide. Quite frankly, we have to anticipate even more of such external challenges, and challenges that will test our resolve, our unity, and our agility. As a small city-state, Singapore has no option. Isolation, protectionism, building walls is not an option for us. In fact, the world is even more interconnected than ever before. So we have actually to double down on globalization. The economic headwinds, the global protectionist sentiments are not going to go away soon, and they will have serious implications on our trade-dependent economy. We are probably the only country where our trade volumes is 3.5 times our GDP. So for us, free trade is not a debating point, it is our lifeblood. So if you think about it, the larger context of this budget debate, of the COS and of the CFE, is that we have to enhance the competitive position of Singapore and Singaporeans. That's the only way we can survive and thrive in this uncertain world. Add to that the fact that major power interactions and rivalry will impact our region and will impact us, and we've seen evidence of that. So the question, therefore, that all of you have posed is how will we navigate these challenges? Our fundamental realities remain. We are still a tiny island in an uncertain neighborhood. We still have to try our best to build a network of friends. We have to be a relevant, valuable, reliable partner, and at the same time, be realistic about our place in the world. As the former British Prime Minister and Foreign Secretary Lord Palmerston once pointed out, nations have no permanent friends or allies. They only have permanent interests. Our key foreign policy principles, therefore, have not changed. First, we conduct an independent, sovereign foreign policy in order to safeguard our independence and the interests of all Singaporeans. Second, we promote ASEAN unity and centrality. And third, we have to remain committed to a rules-based international system. Finally, foreign policy begins at home. And the effectiveness of our foreign policy depends on us being a successful nation state and on the continued support of a united citizenry. And one point which I want to commend today, I've listened to the very thoughtful speeches from Mr. Loh Tia Kiang and Mr. Pritam Singh, and I'm grateful for the bipartisan support that we have in this House. This unity of purpose is essential for us to pursue our foreign policy goals in this uncertain and volatile environment. So all members of this House understand and appreciate the key tenets of our policy. Many of you have asked questions about Singapore's long-term value proposition and the relevance of Singapore to other countries. I think Ms. Sun Trelling asked about Singapore-China relations. Mr. Cedric Foo asked about the US-Singapore relations under the new Trump administration. Mr. Amrin Amin, Mr. Chia Shi Lu have asked for updates on our relations with Malaysia and Indonesia. All of these are key relationships. Let me deal first with China. Singapore has been a steadfast and a long-standing friend of China. Our bilateral relationship, right now, I would describe it as in good working order. In November 2015, when President Xi Jinping came here, we signed an agreement which characterized our relationship as an all-round cooperative partnership progressing with the times. Put aside the words, the point is historically, our relationship has been built on the strong foundations laid by Mr. Lee Kuan Yew and Mr. Deng Xiaoping. And over the decades, Singapore has supported and demonstrated in action and investment China's peaceful development and its progressive engagement of the region and the international community. And we do so because we believe that China's success is good first for the citizens of China, it's also good for the region, and it's good for us. I'm always amazed that tiny Singapore currently is China's largest foreign investor, and we have been so since 2013. China is Singapore's largest trading partner, also since 2013. Several cabinet members, including myself, just accompanied DPM Teo to Beijing. We came back just 2 days ago. We attended the Joint Council for Bilateral Cooperation meeting. It was a very good meeting, and it gave both sides opportunities to explore ways to deepen cooperation, especially in this flagship project of President Xi Jinping, the One Belt and One Road initiative. I also had a very good meeting with my counterpart, and I can say that this, again, is a reflection of the deep and resilient nature of our relationship. Our third and latest government-to-government project, the Chongqing Connectivity Initiative, has been designated a priority demonstration project for the Belt and Road and will play a catalytic role in linking up Western China, both to Southeast Asia as well as across to Central Asia and beyond. Besides the JCBC, we also have candid exchanges and sharing of experiences through established platforms such as the China-Singapore Forum on Leadership and the Singapore-China Social Governance Forum. The various projects, the business engagements, the people-to-people ties, you've heard 2.8 million Chinese tourists to Singapore, and I think for us, maybe 800,000 or so Singaporeans have traveled to China in a year. The high frequency of interactions at senior leadership level have conferred a very high degree of resilience, and I would add strategic trust in our relationship. Therefore, even when we have differences over some issues, as I said in an earlier session, we should not overreact, and we should, in a sense, anticipate that these incidents are not unusual even amongst close friends and neighbors. And we must recognize that our shared interests far exceed these differences. So we must not be distracted from the larger strategic imperatives or allow incidents to derail the substantive, long-standing, and mutually beneficial cooperation. SMS Josephine Teo will elaborate on the more specific details on the relationship with China, as well as give you an update on the JCBC after this. Let me turn now to the US. There is a new administration. It is settling in. There's always a period of uncertainty, a period of adjustment that goes on both domestically when a new administration takes over and also at an international level, basically because the US is such an important superpower. As far as Singapore is concerned, we believe that our many decades of consistent policies and interactions with the US have created trust, and I believe they consider us a reliable partner. I'm confident that we will be creative and adaptable in developing win-win partnerships with the US, even as President Trump pursues a new set of policies. We have had a strong and enduring base of relations for the last 51 years. These mutually beneficial ties have spanned 5 Republican and 4 Democratic administrations. On the economic front, the US is Singapore's 4th largest trading partner in goods and our top trading partner in services. The US is also Singapore's largest foreign direct investor. And Singapore is the US 4th largest Asian investor after Japan, Australia, and the ROK. On the defense front, our Air Force has training detachments in Texas, Idaho, and Arizona. The US is a significant user of both Changi Naval Base and Paya Lebar Air Base. And Singapore also supports the rotational deployment of the US littoral combat ships and the P-8 Poseidon aircraft. These fundamentals of our relationship remain unchanged, and their value is recognized by both Republican and Democrat administrations. Similarly, the strategic and economic imperatives that have underpinned America's long-standing engagement for our region actually remain unchanged. And we have to constantly look for new areas of convergence for win-win cooperation with the US. So for instance, one of the more recent things we're working on is on cybersecurity, and we signed an MOU on cybersecurity in 2016. Mr. Nair and Mr. Loh Teow Kiang also asked some searching questions about how the relationship between China and the US will affect Singapore. And indeed, this is the key bilateral relationship that will affect peace, security, and prosperity in our region and indeed in the world. Whilst competition between the US and China is inevitable, but what is different in historical terms is that never before have two powers been so interdependent, so intertwined economically. Even in the depths of the Cold War, remember that the American and Russian economies were never intertwined to the same degree that the US and Chinese economy is. And so therefore, we hope that both sides, after they've measured these imperatives, will come back to the same conclusion that a constructive engagement and win-win cooperation is the right formula. If they can achieve this, this will provide space for countries in the region, including Singapore, to be part of a common circle of friends and achieve a win-win outcomes for all. This is, in fact, a key reason why, for the last 51 years, Southeast Asia, in particular, the founding members of ASEAN, have enjoyed peace, security, prosperity over the last 5 decades. So we hope that they will arrive at this conclusion, but we should also bear in mind that we have no say, and we cannot determine the dynamics of that relationship. So Mr. Loh asked, what do we do if they don't get along? And the answer is that, number one, I have no say. We have no say. Number two, we should avoid being forced to choose sides for as long as possible. The third point is that we must always remain an honest broker. What that means is, whatever I tell the Secretary of State of the US, I must also be prepared to take the same consistent position with the Foreign Minister of China. I don't say two different things and hope that they never compare notes. We have to be clear, consistent, and transparent in our communication. And then the other point is to try to do as much as possible on a bilateral basis with both China and the US, and if possible, in third-party projects in other parts of the world. So again, it's a matter of maintaining strategic consistency while having tactical agility. And I don't want to say, trivialize and say this will be very easy. It won't be, but watch this space and we will come back to you and update you as things progress. And I hope that all members of the House, including the opposition, will continue to support MFA.